Welcome, everyone. This week on the Changelog, we are talking with our good friend Matt Ryer, whom you may know from our Go Time podcast. Matt created an awesome open source tool for putting darn near anything in your Mac's toolbar. It was initially written in Objective-C, but Matt recently gave it a big rewrite in Go and a big rename from Bitbar to xbar. Now, if you don't use a Mac, don't hit skip on this episode quite yet. There are lessons to be learned for anyone interested in hacking on tools to make your life better. Plus, with this rewrite, Matt has positioned xbar to go cross-platform, and we talk about that too. Big thanks to our partners Fastly, LaunchDarkly, and Linode. Our bandwidth is provided by Fastly. Learn more at fastly.com. Get your feature flags powered by LaunchDarkly. Get a demo at launchdarkly.com. And you know we love Linode. They keep it fast and simple. Check them out at linode.com.
This episode is brought to you by Influx Data, the makers of InfluxDB, a time series platform for building and operating time series applications. InfluxDB empowers developers to build IoT, analytics, and monitoring software. It's purpose-built to handle massive volumes and countless sources of timestamp data produced by sensors, applications, and infrastructure. Learn about the wide range of use cases of InfluxDB at influxdata.com/solutions. Network monitoring, IoT monitoring, infrastructure and application monitoring. To get started, head to influxdata.com/changelog and click Get InfluxDB. Again, that's influxdata.com/changelog.
Today we're joined by a Go Time panelist and the world-renowned Captain Jack Sparrow impersonator himself. It's Matt Ryer. Hey, Matt.
Pleasure to be here, mate. I love your podcasts. I listen to them all on the Black Pearl, mate.
See, I knew he would have to break into it if I just brought it up, so that was...
That's why I'm not allowed to see the doc.
Well played, well played. Matt, thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me. It's an absolute pleasure, and I do mean that.
I would say similar to Jack Sparrow, Go Time would not be Go Time without Matt, the same way that the Pirates of the Caribbean would not be what it is without Jack Sparrow.
It's quite a compliment.
Quintessential piece to the puzzle, that's for sure.
Well, I have so much fun doing it, and I meet such interesting people, and you can tell we have so much fun, I think, when you listen to it. So it's just a kind of joy, really, to do. So I appreciate doing it.
The number one question we ask is, how'd you find us? And it's usually by way of Go Time.
There you go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Very often, at least. Not usually, but very often.
Right, okay.
Once in a while. Well, actually, twice now.
We've walked that one back.
Yeah, two people, actually. Well, we're hoping somebody will say it soon.
You've gone down a couple
No
rungs.
one's ever said it.
Every once in a while. The next thing they see after that is, I don't even write Go, but I love that show.
That's the best.
I have had people say that to me. Yeah, isn't it? Yeah, what are they doing?
It's like we fooled you. What's your problem? Yeah. Oh, man.
Yeah.
What do you code in? Not Go, okay? But I listen to Go Time every week.
Yeah. Well, that is nice because we do try and cover subjects beyond just the language as well. And there's so much in tech to talk about. So I do like the fact that we do that. We did one recently on TDD, test-driven development. We really didn't talk about Go very much at all. It was, but it's the ideas that just apply everywhere.
Yeah. Well, that's why the community lens to that show is very important to get to, because that lets you do that. Like, what does the community really would appreciate hearing from these people that represent this community, that, thrive in this community? I think that's the secret sauce, in my opinion. That's what I love most about the show, is the community aspect of it. It's not just, sure, you are a good centerpiece of the show and you bring a lot to it, but it's not just you. It's a cadre of awesome people involved, and you bring your own perspectives and your own, thoughts from the community and your own insights and whatnot. That's what makes the show really special.
Yeah, like I said, I love doing it.
So one thing I've learned over the last couple of years that you've been on the show is that you came to Go in kind of a strange way. It seems strange to me, which, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you wanted to use App Engine, and App Engine supported Go and maybe Python. I don't know, maybe C++. But you're like, well, I'll take Go. Is that basically the way it went down? Because you've been using Go a long time, so I mean, it's stuck.
Yeah, it was before it was even released, and it was Java or Python were the two options, and I didn't know either of them. Yeah. And
you also didn't know Go, though.
Didn't know Go, but Go had a little EXP experimental badge on it, which is, very enticing. And I, like a magpie, couldn't resist it. And funnily enough, I was able to build something very quickly. And that's a nice thing as a developer. It gives you confidence to carry on. And I kind of get a bit hooked on building things. And you get a payoff very quickly when you can deliver things quickly. So that's what happened. And it just kept going. And and because the thing I was building was also kind of perfect for Go, it really fit into what Go was, I guess, for originally. So, it was just nice. It's just kind of lucky. And I really got very lucky. That's why I'm on Go Time, is because I've been around for ages.
Yeah.
And,
How long? How long now have you been writing Go?
It is about 10 years. It might be a bit more than 10 years. Go isn't even that old, or it might just be.
Yeah.
So it's about 10 or 11 or 12.
Our birthdays are very similar. It was around, because we interviewed Rob Pike. I think it was episode 3, I want to say.
Oh.
I have to check the catalog, but this was so early days. We're should we even do this show? It's a new language from Google. Yes, of course. But I didn't know who Rob Pike was. That's how green I was at the time. And it was right around the time we were born as a podcast, the changelog, way back in 2009. And that was the same time frame.
Yeah, so that's amazing, isn't it? And I remember the first GopherCon in 2014. And I happened to be living in Denver, Colorado at the time. And that's where the conference was. So it was just down the street. So I just walked down the street and went to this conference and just met all these kind of great people, Brian and Eric and the team at GopherCon. And I think Kelsey Hightower I met there as well. It was just like a group of nice people. And one thing that stood out to me is they made a point of diversity. It was something they kept repeating on stage. They wanted to make the community a welcoming place for everybody. And that's something that's always been important to me. So that really resonated. And it just felt like, this is the right way to do it.
We definitely felt that love too, because neither Adam nor I are gophers in the sense of Go programmers, but Go Time was the second show. I mean, it was the one that we launched into, or was it RFC? Those were both around the same time. But Go Time was definitely...
Go Time was first.
Okay,
second,
first, second.
First, second, yeah.
Because we felt the love too, specifically from Brian and Eric and many others in the Go community. It was just like, this is a really welcoming, fun group, and they want us here. And so, hey, let's do a show, with and for them, was really why Go Time started.
Yeah, that's great. And I actually think Go Time has become quite an important part of the community as well. That's why it is really an honor, if I'm being genuine for 5 minutes.
You have to say it again, because we're never sure with you. Is it sarcasm? Is it straightforward?
This is genuine sarcasm.
This is genuine here.
You're eating into the 5 minutes where I'm going to be genuine.
I'm sorry. We don't give anybody 5 minutes. You got 2.5. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah. Well, I think Go Time, has become a big part of that story as well. And, it's nice to go back and listen to random episodes in the past as well. That's a very fun thing to do. And it's all just kind of open and free for everyone to listen to. I think it's great. So I'm really glad you did start it.
So are we.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. I think even it's also an honor on this side to be a steward of that thing, that importance. I think we hold that responsibility very dear to our hearts to deliver that.
Yeah. You can tell.
Well, I'm not being sarcastic when I say Go Time today wouldn't be what it is without you, because you invented the unpopular opinion segment, which really has become kind of a staple of the show, and something that brings people to listen who don't care about Go or write Go, but they want to hear about these unpopular opinions.
Yeah.
That was all you, man. That was all you.
Yeah, well, I remember... it was a kind of meme on Twitter, which it still is.
Yeah.
And it was a sort of this idea, it's a very tongue-in-cheek segment. There's something cheeky about the spirit of Go Time, I think, that I think people do appreciate. And I get feedback in that vein occasionally. So yeah, it was. And then, making the theme tune, taking this silly idea way too seriously.
Exactly.
I always find to be very funny.
So seriously that we take polls to find out if they're actually unpopular. So it's like I say in the intro, this is very serious business. We got to find out how unpopular these opinions are.
Yeah, that's it. It's unpopular opinions. And if your opinion is popular, you've really failed.
Yeah, you're really not good at this.
Yeah.
Well, I do hold a record as one of the most unpopular unpopular opinions of all time. So I do like to hold that over your head.
Champion.
I have one of the most unpopular, which, should I just tell them what it was, or should we hold out and make them go listen? Yeah, so my unpopular opinion was that I believe that JS Party is a better podcast than Go Time. And I make a great case for it on the show, so maybe we should link that one up.
Yeah.
But the Go community did not agree with me whatsoever.
Yeah.
How long's the segment on there? Do you know?
Oh, my part,
2 minutes?
60, 90 seconds, yeah.
Oh, play that right now.
So I'm not going to come on a podcast about Go and say that JavaScript is a better programming language than Go. I'm no fool. I want to walk out of here alive. But I will happily start a proxy war by saying that JS Party is a superior podcast to Go Time.
You're off the show. You're off the show.
Let me quantify this a bit, okay? I have some evidence. So more is better, okay? We have more panelists. We have more male panelists. We have more female panelists. We have more variety. We play game shows. We host formal debates. We write and rehearse poems. We explain things to each other like we're 5. You guys don't explain anything to each other like you're 5. Go Time records on Tuesdays, one of the worst days of the week. JS Party records on Thursdays. Thursday is closer to the weekend, obviously better. We cover more topics. Go Time is about Go. JS Party is about JavaScript and the web. That's twice as many things.
That's cheating.
That's twice as many things. And we know the web is huge, so tons of variety.
You can't take HTTP to a JS Party.
So in review,
See, we do poetry.
we have more awesome panelists. We have more variety. It's on a better day. And this is the big finale point. You're going to like this one. JS Party has 100% less Matt Ryer, which means we really cut down on those awkward silences.
Wow. That was quite the pitch. It was good, wasn't it?
Really well said, I would say.
Really well said.
Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
it's funny. It's funny because I think that also as an idea is quite funny of tech wars. And some people really do take it very seriously in arguing about languages and things. And, Go and JavaScript together, you can make some amazing things. So, yeah. But the JS Party is a good podcast, but I don't know.
Better podcast.
Not
Okay.
as good as... So that's the thing, too, on that front, the wars thing. Like, I want to just scream, same team. Right? Like, this war thing, like, it's good to compete. Competition is great. So I'm always in favor of that. But the warring, the actual fighting,
Yeah.
sometimes even name-calling,
It's too much.
it doesn't help anybody, really. Like, we're here to innovate the future of technology, not win the individualized war.
Right.
Yeah. I think it comes from a place sometimes of... If you're inexperienced, you don't want to waste your time with something. You want there to be a language that's the one to learn so you can really focus. And so I think people are drawn to these tech wars for that reason. I know lots of examples of that where people, because they're new, they get sort of caught up in it. And I think with experience, when you've tried different languages and you realize that some are better at some things than others and everything has its place, and sometimes it might just be what you find fun is the important thing.
Yeah.
And then once you've done that, you realize that, it is quite silly to be sort of fighting over this. And we are better off when we use them together in the right way.
Well, maybe something that speaks highly of the community then is that many people don't know this, but I produce both of those shows. And I also contribute to both of the Twitter handles. And I've been trying to start a gang fight for a while. Matt, you know this.
Yeah.
I've been trying to get JS Party versus Go Time to be a thing. I was thinking like, remember that scene in Anchorman where all the rival, weather guys show up and the rival news people show up and they actually have like a slash and dash in the back alley?
That's Anchorman.
Yeah, an
right?
Anchorman. I'm like, let's get that going between our podcasts because, that would be great for interest. Yeah. And no one's biting. So, I think like the actual warring between the JS group and the Go group is like, it's surface level, but there's no teeth there.
Yeah, we love each other, really.
Yeah.
Brick killed a guy.
There you go. That's seen it. Nice reference.
Just to loop back a little bit, I did confirm episode 3 of the changelog. It was in fact titled The Go Programming Language from Google with Rob Pike, principal engineer at Google and co-creator of Go.
Yeah.
So, way back when.
Confirmed. Go back and listen to that awesome but terribly produced show. It probably sounds terrible, but great content, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Different show back then, for sure.
Well, Matt, we didn't bring you on here just to talk about Go Time for the entire show. We brought you on to talk about Bitbar and xbar, which are written in Go,
Yes.
And one is a rewrite of the other. Let's start with Bitbar. Let's start with the origin, what it is, why you made it, what it does, and then we'll talk about the rewrite and where it stands now and all that good stuff.
Yeah, okay. Well, it was many moons ago. I don't know exactly how many moons, but it was probably around 2014. Bitcoin had just kind of come out, and I bought some Bitcoin. And I had actually at one point 16 Bitcoin. So you can calculate.
Are you still holding?
No, I'm not. You can
You
calculate.
wouldn't be on the show if you were.
Yeah, I'd be on,
You wouldn't need us.
I'd be on a much higher class podcast.
That's
now.
right.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
2,555 moons, just so you know.
thank you. That's good. It's a
Yeah,
lot
but
of
how many
moons.
US dollars though?
No,
Or
we
sorry,
don't calculate
British
that, please.
pounds. Or sorry, euros.
35 million. 47 million euros.
So you had 16 Bitcoin, and you must have wanted to watch the price of those Bitcoins in your menu bar. I'm putting this together. Is that right?
There you go. Exactly right. So I want to just see the Bitcoin price in my menu bar, and there wasn't really a way to do it. There was no app to do it. So I started to build the little project just for myself, and that's why it's called Bitbar, because it comes from Bitcoin.
Gotcha.
And I realized that I was able to get the menu bit done. I was doing it in Objective-C, which I didn't really know. So I was able to get the menu bar pieces working, but I couldn't make a web request to save my life in Objective-C. I'm not kidding. If you look at the code you need to do it,
I've done a little bit of it. It's not straightforward. Yeah.
yeah, it's at least, maybe it's 15 lines of code if you do it properly, and I wasn't doing it properly. So it was just sort of a pain point of doing that. So I thought, well, I know how to do this with curl, so maybe I'll just do that and I'll learn how to run a sub-process. So you wouldn't do that, I think, if you knew what you were doing.
No.
But what that did is it gave a sort of abstraction and meant actually that you could write other scripts, which the output of which could go into the menu bar. And so then I thought, yeah, that's quite nice because, you know, it's not just what I want this for. In theory, other people could write it, or I could just write other ones myself. And so I open sourced it and I used it, and a few people joined in and added some features. Actually, they added some great features like image support and colors and different fonts and things. And then I think it was 2016, it popped into the top of Hacker News, and suddenly then it sort of went crazy and got all this attention. And just sort of randomly, you know, at this point it was a couple of years old and it's just been sat there dormant as far as I knew.
You'd sold your Bitcoin, you moved on.
Yeah. Didn't
Were you
need
still
it
using
anymore.
it to track anything else?
Yeah, I use it for lots of things.
I mean, back then, 2016.
Oh, yeah, probably, because there were always little things that I just would, you know, at the time I cared about, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very hackable because it's basically, if you write an executable, any executable in any language you like, as long as it prints to standard out, each line becomes a menu item in the menu. And there's a special way that you can say, cycle through these items in the actual menu bar and then show these items in the drop down. And then people added support for if I click this item, then I'm going to run some code and do some action, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It was always very hackable. And that means that it attracts developers' attention, you know, because it's a fun thing. And it's almost like the boring bit of figuring out how to do the menus is done for you. And you just get to use your knowledge of something else to then build something. And that's what happened when it got to the top of Hacker News. Suddenly there was this influx of plugins, people writing all sorts of things and solving all kinds of crazy problems.
Well, that had to be a pleasant surprise. How many times did you have to submit it before it popped in? I'm just messing with you.
Yeah, no, I did. Yeah, actually,
Every day, once a day, every day. Finally, in 2016, it got on Hacker.
I actually don't think you can do that, can you?
I don't know.
Once you submit it once. No, true
Interesting that you know that.
Duke. True
It
Duke.
might actually go in, but it probably gets buried immediately.
Yeah, it's not my style.
I think there's
to
a
be honest.
time, there's a statute of limitations. If you submit the same URL that's been submitted recently, I'm not sure what recently means, it will just upvote it. So it'll count as an upvote, which makes sense.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah. No, it was True Duke on Hacker News posted it.
True
And-
Juke?
Yeah, True
One of
Duke.
your sock puppets?
Don't know who that is.
That is-
Yeah.
So, what kind of user base did came out of that? Because a lot of the Hacker News folks, you know, they kind of hit it and quit it. You know, it's like big ol' interest and then here today, gone today. But you get substantial contributors, and it, like you said, it's an open plugin kind of a infrastructure, because as long as you can create a program that writes the standard out in the format that you specify, then you can write a plugin pretty easily. So is that what really got all these people writing plugins?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's the ease at which you can contribute something and the immediate payoff you get. It's that same thing that attracted me to Go, the fact that I was able to deliver something very quickly. I think that also applies there. And you can kind of do it at development time. You can make a script and iterate on it and refresh it, and you just see it live updating and stuff. So the development process is very easy. And that was kind of an accident, if I'm honest. I've since learned to really pay attention to developer experience, user experience, even of dev tools, or maybe especially of dev tools. But I think it was a bit of a got lucky, really, with that design.
I love that happy accident, because it was like your lack of Objective-C skills accidentally created a very nice abstraction that you probably would have bypassed, right?
Absolutely.
And you're like, wow, this is actually a pretty nice layer, because I can just shove whatever else I want in there as long as it conforms. Now it cannot just do Bitcoin.
Yeah, that's it. It's kind of like taking a weakness and sort of owning it and, you know what I mean, turning it into a strength. And that's the thing, like, often you see people, they sort of like want to either compete or they feel like they don't know enough to contribute and so won't. And the lesson, I think, there is that sometimes do something different. You know, if you know something, maybe you can contribute in a different way. It doesn't have to be the obvious way. And I think that's quite nice as well. Sort of step back, think outside the box and see if there are other ways you can do it. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe that was kind of a weakness of mine where it just kind of turned into a strength.
Mm-hmm. What about that day though? Like the Hacker News day where it was popular. How did you find out? You know, how did you react? You know, in terms of like, did you dig your heels in and like get back in with the community and start writing code again? You said it was dormant. So kind of how did you react to this new claim fame?
Yeah, so there were 65 pull requests in one day, and I was getting an email for all of it. So that's how I found out. I just suddenly had loads of spam. And that was a big surprise. I had to take a day off work because, you know, I wanted to reply to people in the community and also wanted to get the plugins merged into the repo so that other people could use them. So this instant community sprung up. It wasn't something that grew organically. It was all of a sudden there were lots of people using this and lots of people contributing to it. So it was great. It was like, you know, winning the lottery or something. And it was very exciting, but also kind of nerve-wracking. And the code, the original code wasn't great. I mean, I really didn't know Objective-C very well at all. People even submitted fixes where, you know, you have to manage your own memory then. They've since added the ARC stuff, the automatic reference counting for objects and memory allocation. Mm-hmm. They didn't have that. So you have to retain objects and release them at the right time and things like that. So that's actually really difficult to get right. And so I think people also contributed there and fixed things and helped out, you know. So yeah, I was kind of a bit nervous and a bit kind of worried about that, but also just basically very excited that there were all these plugins. And I was excited by what the plugins were doing. It was kind of people building amazing things with this, and it was great.
This episode is brought to you by our friends at LaunchDarkly. Feature management for the modern enterprise. Power testing in production at any scale. Here's how it works. LaunchDarkly enables development teams and operation teams to deploy code at any time, even if a feature isn't ready to release to users. Wrapping code with feature flags gives you the safety to test new features and infrastructure in your production environments without impacting the wrong end users. When you're ready to release more widely, update the flag status, and the changes are made instantaneously by their real-time streaming architecture. Eliminate risk, deliver value, get started for free today at launchdarkly.com. Again, launchdarkly.com.
So go back to 2016. You got all this excitement. You got all these people writing. You have basically, I would think it's like a relatively finished piece of Objective-C software that can read from any kind of executable. Why rename it? Why? We know that it's a rewrite, but why rewrite it? This is like, Joel Spolsky's gonna be mad at you. Or who was it that wrote the big rewrite post?
Joel Spolsky.
Sure. Was it Joel? Yeah. So I mean, second rewrite syndrome or whatever it's called. Don't do a rewrite. Just keep on keeping on.
Yeah.
But you didn't do that.
No. I think I kind of know where they're coming from with that. But if the language dies, maybe do a rewrite.
Okay, well said.
Yeah. Objective-C really, I started doing Go, obviously. So I was just spent all my time on Go and not doing Objective-C. And then Swift came out. So then people are using Swift instead. And so not just me, I couldn't find contributors to help maintain the project. And there were some issues in some cases. And as the operating systems changed,
I was going to say, that's got to be the problem, right?
Yeah, little things like the vertical alignment of the text suddenly was different and needed work and turned out to just be not easy to solve, especially if you don't know Objective-C. So it kind of started going stale and we just weren't able to keep it alive. And so, the decision came as like, people were asking for it and there were other projects that supported the Bitbar plugins, it's now called xbar.
Mm-hmm.
And so, there's definitely people still liked it and were still using it. So it seemed like the right thing to do. And we did a Go Time episode with the creator of Wales, which is a Go powered and JavaScript, best friends. Front end, it's desktop app for desktop applications. What does that mean?
Is that what that means?
Yeah, I think so.
Explain that, please.
It's a framework for building desktop applications using JavaScript as the front end and Go as the back end. And, it uses a web view. And with clever styling and some other tricks, it really, like you can do transparency in the window, for example. So it looks and feels like a real native app on the Mac. And so we did that episode, which you can probably go back and listen to, with Lee Anthony. And I was chatting to Lee one day on Twitter and, he was telling me about Wales 2, the rewrite that he was doing. And I asked him, like, do you think we'd be able to put together a desktop app for this and interact with the menu bars and things and support this? He was a little tipsy, because he's in Australia. He lives in Australia. So even he's from Wales, not the project, from the country Wales. The project
Which
Wales.
Is why he called it Wales.
It is. Although, because it's like Rails. It was like web-based Rail. Yeah. So I think it was that. So I was texting him and he was tipsy, I think is the polite way to say it. So he was agreeing. He was like all over this idea of loving it. And I was like, okay, well, maybe wait till the morning and see if you still feel the same. And then, about 10 hours later, I just got a message. It just said in all caps, "I regret nothing." And so, we set about writing the rewrite, and we got to write it in Go. So that's nice. That means now, the xbar project now is maintainable and we can work on it and it's well structured and it makes sense. And a rewrite is, I think, often better than the first version anyway, because you learn so much from that first version. So it is, it kind of manifests that idea. And it looks nice, and we built a plugin browser, which, because it's a proper desktop app, it has transparency in the window, so it just looks gorgeous. And the project came back to life. So I loved it.
That's cool. So I think project size also matters when it comes to the rewrite. Mm-hmm. I imagine a lot of Bitbar was the plugins, which were written in non-Objective-C. And I'm assuming, do those all you just adopted the same format, so those probably all work with xbar. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the goals was all the plugins had to work because we didn't want people to have to rewrite or change their plugins in any way. So that's something I learned from Go, is that backwards compatibility promise is so meaningful. It's not just a nice to have. It's actually, it takes more effort, but it's so worth it. And it's kind of showing respect to everybody that's contributed to the project.
Right. So, I mean, people warn against the big rewrite. but small rewrite, not so bad, especially when the first version, I mean, it's kind of like you just shipped a prototype for a while. I mean, we're supposed to throw away our first versions, right?
Yeah.
Like that's one of the problems with a lot of software is we write our prototype, and a prototype is not meant to be the production piece of thing, right? It's supposed to be like the first version by which you build the real thing. But we tend to just put those things into production and just build and add on to them over time. It's smart to write a thing. I mean, that's why they have the term spike, right? Go spike out a thing, proof of concept, a prototype, and then write it for real. Now, yours was just a really long, I mean, you could think of it like a really long one of those. And then when it came time to take it seriously, after it has a user base, it's found niche, etc., now let's do it, take what we learned, and let's do it in a language that you're very proficient in and do it right the second time. So I think that's wise.
Yeah, I agree. I think that probably is a nice way to think about it. I mean, I like rewrites, actually. Hemingway famously said, there is no writing but rewriting, or something like that, where when you're writing something, the first version of it really isn't a thing yet. You have
I wonder
to,
what that quote looked like the first time he wrote it.
Yeah, it's probably awful. It's probably like
It's probably awful.
writing, but not writing, but do it twice. It's probably that. And you know what I mean? Didn't quite.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
He couldn't form. Well, a lot of our thoughts are formed through the process, right?
Yes.
That's where you're getting. I agree.
That's where I'm getting. Yeah.
He was also famous for the shortest story, I believe, ever. For sale, baby shoes, never worn.
Oh.
It's a little bit dark, so sorry about that.
No, but
Way to kill the mood, Adam.
that's
my bad.
kind of beautiful.
You know, that's the thing, though. People, writing code and writing words, though, is very... I think you have to draw a parallel there because I think famously Hemingway also said everything, you're always writing. Just get it out there. Whatever it is, just get it out there. Because it's like, temporary art until it's perceived and executed upon. Then it can actually be, iterated upon, others can view it. It's something. It's substantial at that point.
Yeah.
And, we make this big deal about rewrites. And I think contextually, as you said, it does make sense.
Yeah.
The argument is contextual.
Yeah. You just learn. It's what you learn in that process. And honestly, even to the point where I really resist designing software too much. There is obviously value in designing software, and you should be designing software, but you can definitely very easily over-design up front, and then you're sort of locked in to these ideas you had at the beginning when you knew the least.
Right.
And so, I think through that process and the learning that pops out of that and the opportunities that pop out too, I didn't design xbar the way it was. I got there because I tried to make a simple web request using Objective-C, and I couldn't do it because of NS URL request object. Didn't make any sense. I'm not kidding. Oh, it was a nightmare.
Oh, no, you're not. That's why it's funny.
And so I took the opportunity then.
So is Wales cross-platform then?
Yes, Wales is cross-platform, which means xbar will be cross-platform, and that's also
cool.
very exciting. Yes.
Yeah, so you get that for free. So Bitbar and xbar today is a macOS menu bar app, right?
Yes, that's right. But in the future, it will become cross-platform. And of course, all the plugins won't necessarily make sense because a lot of them are specific to a Mac. So there will have to be some way. There is actually metadata inside each plugin. And I actually wouldn't mind spending some time talking about the design of the API as well, because it's
totally.
Yeah, it kind of has its own benefits too, but there's metadata in there essentially inside the plugin somewhere. It can be anywhere in the code, usually in comments, so you can't see it. And of course, the comments can look like anything because you can write plugins in any language. So we'll probably have metadata that says which platform it's for the plugins, and we'll be able to then maybe multiple platforms because
it doesn't say it could be multiple platforms even. One plugin.
Yeah.
So xbar parses arbitrary language comments in order to extract metadata? That sounds like a bad idea.
Yeah, does it? Well, it works.
It just sounds harder than just like, well, why don't you just define a format for metadata?
Oh, no, there is a format, but it's like XML tags, but they can just appear anywhere in the file. It's very loose.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant you could just willy-nilly any sort of put a comment wherever you want. Because like you said, different languages indicate comments in different ways. Okay. Yeah. That doesn't sound quite so bad. It sounded pretty bad at first, so thank you for clarifying.
Yes, that's all right. But that's nice because in xbar we added like variable support. One of the things that lots of the plugins had was if you had to configure something, like if you've got one of them's a currency, shows you the currency rate. So you edit the script and choose the currency that you want to see. Well, what we wanted to do is make that user experience a little bit better. So we added explicit support for variables, which just are their environment variables, really. You define them in the metadata. They show up in the UI and let you edit them. And then when xbar runs the plugin, it sends those environment variables in, you use them in the script, and that's now how you do configuration and things like that. So that's a new feature that came from xbar that we didn't have in bitbar.
So tell us more about the feel and the process of writing Go with Whales in order to produce what it will be a cross-platform, but is a desktop application. You said it's like web technologies. Can you tell us what that felt like to use Whales and to build a Go project that's going to run on a Mac, like as a binary, or maybe even just the distribution and stuff would be interesting?
Yeah. Well, fortunately, the Whales project does a lot of the heavy lifting for you. I mean, you essentially have your own, you can use your own UI frameworks, and I quite enjoy building UIs as well. So I got into Svelte, which is a UI JavaScript framework, and it has similar philosophy as Go in that it tries to be minimalist. It doesn't do everything. It doesn't give you all these complicated features. It gives you a small feature set, just enough, and therefore it's kind of easier to use. And it also has this other effect that I'm sure is well known, but this basically does a lot of its work at compile time, not at runtime. So in theory, that makes the projects much faster when you use them. And to be honest, you do notice that, I think. They're very snappy UIs when you use Svelte. So that was it. Front end was Svelte. There's an API that Whales gives you. You can just expose Go methods to the front end and call them in JavaScript. It's all transparent, so it's very easy. And it's kind of like promise API. So you make a call to the back end, you get back a promise. If there's an error, then you use the catch to handle it. So it's very natural, like building a web with a server, but the server just happens to be running locally on the machine. And then the Whales tools packages it all up and bundles it together into a single binary, and then you run it, and that's it. There's a bit of work to do, like to turn it into a Mac app. You have to put it into a certain folder with extra bits of metadata and things. It's quite trivial, and the Whales project really helps do that. So it felt very natural to me because I build a lot of server client applications like that. Yeah, and it's a joy to use, really. Lee had to do work in Whales to support menus because it wasn't a priority. If you think about a desktop app, accessing the menu bar is not really something that most apps do. So we made a deal, and he agreed to add support to Whales for that. And in exchange, I sent him a MacBook M1.
Nice.
MacBook Air.
Nice.
All right, good deal.
That's a good deal for both of you.
That's a good sponsor right there.
Well, he also wanted to make sure Whales worked natively on M1. So it was really a good kind of win-win all-round situation. You know what I mean? So that was nice. And he's a genuinely lovely bloke as well, which helps, doesn't it, when you like people.
And he regrets nothing.
He regrets nothing. I've got proof.
That's the best email subject ever. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you had all these Bitbar users. I know even some big Mac people, like I read about, I think it was Bitbar first, and I already knew you at this time, but I read about it on Jason Snell's website, who is a Mac-based writer and journalist and has a big following. His writing. How's the reception to xbar? Has everybody moved over? Is everybody excited? Was there any laggards or complaints? What's the situation with xbar?
Well, everybody is happy to just switch over because if you're a user of Bitbar, xbar had feature parity.
It's the same thing, yeah.
Yeah, so there's no reason to not like it, yeah. And, the other thing that happened, which was very exciting, was this a little bit, just back to when it was Bitbar. Years ago, when I was young, I used to get this Amiga Format magazine, which was a computer magazine. It had floppy disks on the front, and it had it'd give you free stuff, and you could have programs inside it and all sorts. And this was I loved this. I think for my birthday, I got a subscription to this magazine. So every month, I remember my dad he was worked in the mines, so he'd get up very early. So he'd usually get up and get the post and then leave the magazine by my bed. So I'd always remember like very tired, but just so excited that it was there. And I knew it was there and I couldn't wait to wake up, but you know, it was too early. And so I've kind of lots of nostalgia around that particular magazine for that reason. And then years later, I didn't really bother with magazines because the internet tells you all the things. So, and I just randomly bought this magazine one time and was just flicking through it. And I just opened up this double page spread on Bitbar. And it was just like explaining how to use it and how to plug it. And honestly, that was like a thing. That was like a big deal for me then. That I'd got into this magazine.
What magazine was it?
It was Mac format then. So, but it's the same publisher. I don't know if you have that in the US. That
you have Mac World.
publisher.
I'm not sure about Mac Performer, but
yeah, it's Future Publishing, I think. Maybe UK based, but well,
that had to be quite a feeling.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I couldn't believe it. It was. I mean, I don't really know how it feels. Actually, it's one of those I can't really articulate.
Did you frame it? Did you hold on to it? Is it underneath your pillow? What'd you do with the artifact? 'Cause
I took a picture of it, and then
that's it.
Yeah, and then my wife threw it out by mistake.
Oh,
yeah. So
at least you got the picture.
I got a picture. Yeah, exactly. That's all
cool.
right. I'm not very sentimental, really, so I don't mind that. But it was just the fact that it was in there kind of blew me away. So, but to answer your question, yes, xbar comes along and people like it. Yeah,
awesome.
Yeah, I actually got the CEO of GitHub, Nat Friedman.
Oh, Nat Friedman.
Yeah, Nat Friedman got in touch through a friend and wanted to have a chat, and he just loved it, loves the project. Like, this was also very nice. It's another one of those moments. And he liked what he said was like the taste of the design of those plugins. And it's because of things like, you have to choose the refresh rate of a plugin. And you do that by including it in the file name. So you can do like 5 seconds, file. So if it's like some clipboard plugin, it'll be clipboard.5s.sh if it's a bash script. And that will refresh every 5 seconds. And the fact that you can write plugins in any language, it's like this kind of like very minimalist API really over what you can do. So that was another moment that was quite meaningful when, because GitHub is, I think, a great platform for developers. And so that felt like that was some good kudos.
Validation. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, I mean, paying attention to the, not that this is a little project, but it's not like Kubernetes or this gigantic community. Like, it's a indie project, indie dev, with its own motivations. It's not like this super enterprise thing, and he's only paying attention to, the big things, so to speak, monetarily.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think the fact that it enabled developers, which is obviously a big focus at GitHub, but it was something you mentioned was it's almost like just by making a different decision, which in the beginning was just happened by accident, but just that change in the way that you think about it unlocks things for other people and enables other people. And then that multiplying effect that you can have always appealed to me. And Nat also mentioned the same thing. And that was, I like that. I like the fact that you can do this almost the same work that you were going to do anyway, but just with that attitude or that slight twist on it, you can unlock things for others and enable others, I think is nice, especially for in open source projects.
This episode is brought to you by our friends at Square. For our listeners out there building applications with Square, if you haven't yet, you need to check out their API Explorer. It's an interactive interface you can use to build, view, and send HTTP requests that call Square APIs. API Explorer lets you test your requests using actual sandbox or production resources inside your account, such as customers, orders, and catalog objects. You can use the API Explorer to quickly populate sandbox or production resources in your account. Then you can interact with those new resources inside the seller dashboard. For example, if you use API Explorer to create a customer in your production or sandbox environment, the customer is displayed in the production or sandbox seller dashboard. This tool is so powerful and will likely become your best friend when interacting with, testing, or playing with your applications inside Square. Check the show notes for links to the docs, the API Explorer, and the developer account sign-up page, or head to developer.squareup.com/explore/square to jump right in. Again, check for links in the show notes, or head to developer.squareup.com/explore/square to play right now.
So to me, the coolest thing about this project is how extensible it is. Two aspects. First of all, there's hundreds of plugins already written to just be used. So if you want something in your menu bar, likelihood of it being in there is high. Secondly, if it's not, you can just totally hack it together yourself, right? So we talked a little bit about the plugin architecture, how it all works. I wanted to play a little game I call Can XBAR Do This? So I've compiled a list.
Does it need a theme
Some
tune?
of these things are existing plugins. So it's part quiz. Does Matt know his plugin directory? And it's also part honest question. Can it do this? Can I get it to do this? And so I'll hit the list here, Matt. These are kind of yes or no questions, but feel free to elaborate.
Okay.
Yes or no won't cover it.
Can we play some dramatic, like, game show music in the background, like a bed?
Let me just check the budget. No, we cannot. I'm sorry.
Okay, fair enough.
All right. Can XBAR do this? Number one, can it show me the charging status of my BMW?
I do believe it can. I think I've seen that one.
That would be correct, except for I do not have a BMW, so the answer is actually no. But yes, it can do that.
Yeah.
Can it show me my Robinhood portfolio?
Yes, I remember merging a Robinhood plugin. So yeah,
That's
I
correct.
think, yeah. Oh, I'm nailing this. 2 out of.
Yeah, you are nailing it. 2 for 2. Can XBAR show me my current weight?
Ooh, well, it's very polite application, so I don't know about that. Can it? I don't know. No, I don't think so. I'll say no.
I don't think so. Now, the question is, how would we get that done?
I think it's possible.
Where would you get the weight from?
Or some sort of smart scale?
I think you would have to interact with a smart scale for sure.
And some kind of API maybe to access it.
Yeah.
So that means the next one is, can it show me your current weight? I guess that's also false. Okay. So next one. Can it check my Gmail for me?
Yes, there's lots of email. In fact, email has its own category. You can see all the plugins at xbarapp.com, and I made a kind of menu bar that contains all the category of all the plugins. It just mirrors the repo, so it's very lo-fi. But yeah, there are lots of different email things in there too. So yes, I think it's yes.
Can XBAR buy and sell Bitcoin each time Elon Musk tweets?
You could make it do that if it doesn't already. Yeah, there are also loads of crypto. In fact, that might be the biggest area. Crypto.
Probably.
Yeah.
Because crypto people got to know they have to know their numbers in real time.
Yeah, because you never know when the one tweet is going to destroy your future.
You know what's ironic to me about crypto holders is they all talk about how they're long-time holders, but they have to know the price for every 5 minutes. It's like, well, if you're holding for the long term, what's the next 5 minutes matter?
It's all about marketing at that point, really.
Yeah. Can XBAR Rickroll me in 4K? I guess the answer would depend. Can it play a YouTube video, or you said there's image support?
Yeah, it supports images, not videos. No.
Okay. So
no.
feature request. Okay.
Okay. Denied.
Can XBAR generate passwords?
I haven't seen that.
Ooh, your first miss. It actually can generate passwords. There's a password generator plugin at xbarapp.com.
I
thought that was a cool one.
Yeah.
You know,
how does
you
that
have to
work?
grab a new password lots of times. I don't know.
I hope it's
What
random.
category is that one under?
Utilities,
System?
maybe, or tools.
System.
Now, here's
Yeah, it is.
one.
Password generator right at the top.
There it is.
Come on, Matt.
Come on, Matt. Can it show me how many people
It's
are
featured.
currently on changelog.com?
What, you mean Google Analytics or some other analytics?
Well, we use Plausible, but does it support Google Analytics?
Yes, it does support Google Analytics.
Nice. And I believe Plausible has a API now, so we could probably wire that one together.
Yeah.
What was the question again?
Can it show how many people are currently on changelog.com? Like, what if that was right in your menu bar? Kind of.
Yeah.
There you go. That's nice.
Talk about obsessing over numbers.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Can xbar tell me random dad jokes?
I don't think so.
You're absolutely incorrect. It can.
Well, it has a dad joke one. Oh, wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, I know. That was the most intriguing
It does
one to
so
me.
much.
I know.
Yeah. Actually, honestly, you wouldn't believe some of them. The clipboard ones are my
I was
favorite.
very impressed.
There's a lot of clipboard. Well, there's a few clipboard-related plugins which do great things. One of them's a base 64 encoder, so you can copy some file or you copy something, and then it runs periodically. So I think they have it to run every second or whatever it is. So then anything in your clipboard, it will base 64 encode, and then you can just go and copy it immediately from the menu. That was one. The other one was the clipboard history, which has been in there for a while, which shows you your last 10 copies and pastes.
Yeah, that's great.
Correct. So you can switch between them as well. That's nice. I thought that was just really clever because that's like almost an application in its own right.
I was going to say it's replacing, because I have an application, I think it's called CopyClip, which is basically that functionality alone. And it has some niceties where like you can set how many it'll keep, and it'll automatically put it back into your clipboard when you click on it, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But if you could replace a bunch of little utilities with xbar plus plugins, that's kind of a nice trade, if you ask me.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it is. And clocks and music controls and things like that are all in there. The time ones are very interesting because there's some funny ones and then there's some really useful ones. It's quite useful for, like, there's a Unix time one that somebody submitted ages ago. And if you want to know the time in Unix time all the time, you can.
It's right there.
Yeah.
There you go.
So does it only run on a schedule, or can you actually interact? Like, could you click a button inside xbar and trigger a thing to run?
Yes, and you can even wire up a menu item to tell it to refresh as well. There's actually quite a lot you can do to the menu items themselves, including like you can open a URL, you can run a script. That means you can actually, and if you have some state somewhere, which you just is up to the plugin how it does that, you can actually build quite interesting interactive applications. It turn out to be, quite surprising.
Yeah.
As well. People in space.
I'm excited to hear what our community of listeners come up with once they start playing with this thing, because the sky really is the limit. Let's get back to this list here. Can xbar manage Adam's pie hole?
I don't know what that means.
Adam, tell him about your pie hole.
Well, Pi-hole is, it runs on a Raspberry Pi, and it's essentially a DNS essentially for, blocking all the ads, essentially. It's called a Pi-hole because it runs on a Raspberry Pi primarily, but you can probably run on anything, honestly.
Yeah.
But it's best installed upon Raspberry Pi because it's a small device, public internet network, and you point your DNS there first, as your lookup, and it filters out all the, ad tracking and
Right.
all the retargeting stuff, and there's a master list. It's all open source on GitHub.
And how do you manage it now? Is it like a web admin or something for it?
Yeah, it's just at an IP address, which I won't disclose, but you go to this local IP address essentially, and it has its own web login. You can log into it. I'm pretty sure there'd be an API to it, so I'm assuming that you probably could. Yeah. The most, actually that would be useful because the one thing I do often, or at least often enough, is log into it to disable it for a duration of time. They have a drop down where you can say disable for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, because you might want to browse a site. There's links that break because of the tracking, and so temporarily you want to okay, I'm cool with this link here. Let me do my thing, Pi-hole. Right. You sort of want to stop it, but it's a network-wide catcher for the whole network. So no matter what device, you're not doing this stuff on individual devices. And every once in a while, you want to manage at least toggling it on and off or disabling it temporarily. So that would be kind of cool to have as a bit an xbar thing.
Well, let me answer it for him because Matt didn't know what Pi-hole was, so he will not know the answer. There is a Pi-hole manager plugin.
Nice.
So yes, you can manage that. And I can see where that would be a very confusing question, not having any context there, Matt. So
Yeah, I
appreciate
Won't blame you.
just taking that with grace.
Pie hole is your mouth, isn't it? Not worth it.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a
Pie hole
pun
is
on
your
your
mouth.
mouth. Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense.
So if a lot of
'Cause
you
it's
mute
round.
Adam, that would also have been correct.
It's because your mouth is
Well,
round,
no, it's
isn't
not
it?
because it's round. It's because it's where you put your pie. You put it in the pie
I
hole.
thought it's to do with Pythagoras.
Well, that's a theorem.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Can xbar show and manage homebrew services? Let me just answer this one because I'm excited. Yes, you can
Yes.
manage your homebrew services. That's a really cool feature.
Yes. And so then I thought, at this point, I was like, okay, there's a lot of stuff I can do. But do I want all this in my menu bar? And so at that point, you sort of get overloaded and you got to untuck and hide and things like that.
Yeah.
Then I say, well, does this really make sense as a menu bar thing? Could you, give it a tiny UI versus just simply a menu bar? So maybe you can talk about how people push the limits of this and how maybe your menu bar will become super cluttered.
Yeah, that is a fair point. And really, it's kind of up to people, I think. But with the image support, like it supports images. And the way that works is you base64 encode the image and you literally print it out in a special way. So everything is just text-based and simple. But people have done some amazing things where they are dynamically generating and then encoding images and things. But you can do it so it looks like an icon in the top. So you can actually keep it nice and neat for those times. Or just don't install them all. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's another way.
Well, they're just so useful.
That's kind of like when Firefox first added extensions. And I mean, I probably had 75 extensions installed, and
Because
my
you could.
Firefox got very slow and I got mad at Firefox and I'm like, wait a second, Jared, you are also in control of these extensions.
Yeah.
You don't have to install every extension that comes out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, there's one called plugin that's Is It Up, which you give it a URL and it just pings it and tells you if it's up or not. Do you know what I mean? It's like,
Nice.
it's so simple. But
Cardi B would tell you.
yeah, she would, wouldn't she?
Anyway.
Is she related to Jason P?
She might be. You have to ask her.
Cardi B and Jason P. That
I'd
could
love
be
to
a
see those two collaborating.
collab.
Yeah.
Can we talk a bit about, the effort into this and maybe any commercial plans for this, being supported as a community developer? I know you got a GitHub sponsor. You've got some tracking in terms of a goal. You've got 54% towards your 50 sponsors goal. What are you doing there? How are things working on that front? Is it important to you?
Yeah, it's interesting that actually it was Nat Friedman that said you should set up sponsors on GitHub. I mean, when the project was first around, there wasn't such thing as GitHub sponsors.
And
so
he's a sponsor.
he is,
Good job, Matt.
he is indeed a sponsor. I think he's my biggest sponsor, actually.
Would that be the $1,024 a month, a bit creepy now, sponsor level?
Well,
What I love about this, let me take the mic here real quick. 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, 128, 256, 512, and 1024. That's your tiers, which is just super cool.
yeah, it's
And I didn't even say the lines for each of those.
yeah. Go on, do you want to?
Do you want to?
That's a lot.
I'd love to hear
It's
it.
a lot.
I'll let you do it.
Pick your favorite 3.
A succulent Chinese meal.
That's
Your
32.
stuff makes our stuff better. Your contributions are really making a difference to us. Keep doing what you're doing. You're really helping us.
Yeah,
A couple of coffees or one coffee in a fancy place.
yeah.
That's a few.
Some places
Cheers.
coffees are more
British
expensive.
for thank you.
I like the $2, which is a tip of the hat, but $4 is 2 tips of the hat or a tip from 2 hats.
That is a good one.
That is good. So that's what I love about you, Matt, too, is this humor you bring to just life in general. And I think your tears are an example of that. So
Thank
keep doing
you.
that stuff.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a coping mechanism, really. So it's like if
Sure.
I look like I'm not taking it too seriously, I can't really be too embarrassed if things go bad.
I would think that would be seriously not serious then, because that's serious enough to think through that detail and be that funny.
Right.
But then not serious enough because it's not like corporate enterprise sponsor.
Yeah.
You've made my meal today. I don't know. It just a bit more.
Yeah.
It's just very funny.
I don't take it too seriously. And I don't, I use the sponsorship there. My idea is to distribute that to other people contributing because I do want to keep the project alive. And there is work to do. It's actually doesn't have a major release yet of xbar. So there are still some things that are being worked out. and there's still some bugs and things in it. So if people are interested in contributing, I'm definitely interested in that. And the sponsorship will be used in some way to facilitate that. It's a tough one because like the tax is quite interesting on sponsorship money and stuff like that. So there are some things to figure out, but I think I've got it sorted.
I hope GitHub does something about that at some point, because that's what Open Collective has done well, was remove that portion, because it's generally, this is getting into the details, but it's generally some sort of fiscal sponsor. We talked with Pia, which we'll have out before this episode. So you can go back into our feed and listen to that with Pia from Open Collective and all the details around that. But it's a difficult thing. Yeah. You know, it's a difficult thing to support a developer, and probably definitely more difficult to support a developer to support other developers by way of, you know, it's challenging. Yeah,
I do think GitHub will end up enabling that, at least, so that you can, you know, the sponsorship for a project. Because at the moment, everyone's sponsoring me on that. Not everyone. In fact, if you want to sponsor me, please do. But people are sponsoring me personally, and it would be better if you could sponsor the project, and then we could somehow split that between the contributors. So yeah, I'm not trying to make money from xbar. That's not really what it was ever for. I did get sent loads of socks at one point, because in the README I had an Amazon wish list, because people were asking, like, can I send you some Bitcoin or something? I needed some socks at the time, but then I ended up getting about 200 pairs of socks in the post. So I've
Seriously?
I've just got, and it was just the same pair of socks 200 times. I've still got loads of them. I've got these red socks. So you'll always see me wearing red socks. You won't always see me wearing red socks.
Lifetime supply. There you go.
Yeah. That was
problem solved.
Yeah. Socks all around.
So that's good. Then your goal then is to, at least currently with sponsors, is to generate enough sponsorship of you to give back to those who are contributing to xbar.
Yeah, I really want it to be used to make, keep xbar alive. There will always be work to do. And there were lots of feature requests which didn't quite fit into, you want it to be simple, but maybe there's some places where it can be more complicated, and that's okay. So there's a tough kind of balance there with feature set, as there always is in these kinds of projects. But like the Wales project, I'd like to get some sponsorship from this as well, because it wouldn't have been possible without that project. And then it's just a case of use it and build your own plugins and share what you've built. Tweet me. I love seeing the things they've built. Mm-hmm. And if you can, then also contribute that to the repo, xbar plugins repo, and we'll put the information in the show notes, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And please get involved. It's a lot of fun. And, your creativity really is your only limit in this.
Well, to get more Matt, you can go to GoTime and listen to GoTime and get weekly doses or hits or tips from Matt. xbar.com. Is that right?
xbarapp.com.
xbarapp.com. Thank you for correcting me. Or also github.com/Matt Ryer.
Well, hang on. You'll edit it, won't you?
You just roll with it, right?
Oh, I thought you're
the one who always says that. They'll edit this out.
Yeah.
They'll edit this out.
That never happens, don't you?
They never do.
Do you listen to the shows? Because, every time you say that, it never happens.
Nope.
So we just don't say it anymore, because we know it's not going to happen.
I know. I actually think the edited, when you edit the podcast, the live shows are always more raw, and, obviously you make mistakes, but it's not just the mistakes. I think you do such a good job when it gets edited together. The conversations just flow really well. I like to also encourage people to listen live and join in live, because it's so much fun. We're just hanging out. It really feels like you're just hanging out with friends, and then in a week's time in your podcast app, there's a little podcast. Oh yeah, we talked about that last week. It's great.
Well, Matt, we really appreciate you coming on the Changelog. Of course, we appreciate everything you do on GoTime and in the Go community and the open source community, and even your zany music videos you put out, and just the entertainment that you bring is such a fun aspect of developer life. So we appreciate you coming on the show and all those other things I just said.
Yeah, thanks for having me. My pleasure.
You're welcome back. Anytime you rewrite xbar, come back.
All right, that's it for this episode of the Changelog. Thank you for tuning in. We have a bunch of podcasts for you at changelog.com. You should check out. Subscribe to the master feed. Get them all at changelog.com/master. Get everything we ship in a single feed. And I want to personally invite you to join the community at changelog.com/community. It's free to join. Come hang with us in Slack. There are no imposters and everyone is welcome. Huge thanks again to our partners Linode, Fastly, and Launch Darkly. Also thanks to Breakmaster Cylinder for making all of our awesome beats. That's it for this week. We'll see you next week.